Hello, everyone. This is Javier from Atos, a representative of Atos on the unit of Atos Research and Innovation, the unit of blockchain identity and privacy. And today we would like to present you on our session the KRAKEN project that we are coordinating. And the KRAKEN stands for User Engagement with Privacy-Preserving Data Sharing Platforms. And today we would like to share with you an introduction of our pillars on KRAKEN project, and also try to discuss or try to get some feedback from you on the challenges and opportunities. Let me go to the workshop objectives that we have today, because we would like to structure a little bit this workshop, this hour. So as I mentioned, we would like to address some challenges and opportunities that we have on our technologies. And for that, we would like to present the three pillars that we have in our project. First pillar is the cryptographic methods that is going to support the privacy preserving analytics. So for that, we have our expert, Sebastian Ramacher, from Austrian Institute of Technology. Also, we are going to see the second pillar is the self-sovereign identity. And then we are going to talk about the marketplace that is our, let's say, our core platform that we have also in the project. Then the fourth slot, it's to evaluate these results that we have to share with you the evaluation of that we have in our first pilot round. So for that's the agenda that we propose, as I mentioned, the three pillars presented by the crypto methods. It's going to be presented by Sebastian Ramacher. He's a scientist on the Austrian Institute of Technology. Also the marketplace presented by Davide Accanini from Linkeus, managing director of Linkeus, and also the self-sovereign identity paradigm, the pillar that is going to be presented by Ángel Palomares from Atos, senior researcher on blockchain identity and privacy unit. And then after these three pillars that is going to give you and provide you a big overview of our project, we are going to give the floor to Silvia, a senior researcher from Fondazione Bruno Kessner company, and we are going to present the evaluation, as I mentioned, the evaluation results that we have in the first round of our pilots. Another thing that we would like to have with this session is to try to engage more users. So feel free to get in contact with us. At the end of the project, I'm going to share some content details of our project. So I'm going to give the floor for the main pillars to Sebastian.
Yeah, hi, my name is Sebastian Ramacher. As already said by Javier, I'm a scientist at the Austrian Institute of Technology here in Vienna, and I'm working on different parts of cryptography, from post-quantum crypto to privacy-preserving crypto. That is the focus of KRAKEN. Next slide, please. So in KRAKEN, what we want to achieve with the cryptographic pillar is that we assume that we have multiple users that produce data sets from including personal data, maybe e-health data, educational data. And there's an interested party, for example, a research organization that wants to compute statistics on multiple data sets. For example, you could consider, right, there's a lot of, you have hospitals with a lot of data on e-health data, and then you want to run a study over all hospitals in Europe, let's say, then you want to combine that. There's, of course, a challenge regarding privacy here. So we want to build an architecture that preserves privacy. So we want to have a privacy by design architecture. So essentially what we want to achieve is that the buyer only really sees the result without the original data. And in the cryptographic literature, we know of secure multi-party computation, which is a technology that supports this kind of computations. in short, secure multi-party computations is a family of protocols that allows multiple parties to jointly compute on their data, which means that they learn together the result of the computation, but nobody of the involved parties learns any of the individual bits. So the main important thing is that the inputs stay private, but they can arrive at a combined result of the computation. Next slide, please. So we build our marketplace architecture that Davide will later describe in detail based on this multi-party computation approach. So the idea is that we first have a user with their data. They produce shares, which are encrypted to some computation nodes that are then sent via the marketplace to these nodes, and they can then compute results for some research organization or an interested buyer. Next slide. So with this method, we achieve privacy, but there's of course another challenge, right? As a user, I might want to control what my data is used for. So what we envision here is that a user is able to define a certain set of functions or a certain set of statistics which are allowed to be performed on their data. This can be, for example, done, right? A user assigns kind of a set of possible functions or statistics and sends this to also the marketplace. And the computations nodes are then need to verify that the user actually allows some certain kind of computation. So we can also limit the use to what the user allows, and then we have a third challenge, right? The buyer wants, of course, to be sure that the computation result that he gets is authentic. So the third pillar that we have to build here is some authenticity guarantees, and for that, next slide, please. We leverage zero-knowledge proofs. Zero-knowledge proofs are a cryptographic primitive that allow you to prove statements of some that they are valid, but without revealing some secret bits. This can be done for mathematical puzzles or also secret information like private keys, but also, of course, with respect to encrypted data. Next slide, please. So what we do here is that the MPC nodes, besides performing the computation, they also verify the signatures as before, but they also, next slide, please. Or next, yeah, they also generate the proof that they verified the data and the data was authentic, that the data is coming from the user. So you get a chain of authenticity from the user to the buyer. Yeah, and with that, we achieve all three features, right? We have privacy of the data from the users. The buyer only gets the result. The user can limit the computations to what they want to allow. And we have authenticity from the user to the buyer so that the buyer is sure that this is the actual result that he gets. And with that, I'll give back to Javier.
Yes, let me check if we have our partner also connected. Well, unfortunately, technical problems, we don't have Davide, so I'm going to give the floor to the next pillar. Angel, if you want to share your screen.
Yes. Could you? Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, I'm Angel Palomares. I'm working for Atos in the project mainly to do support or working on the self-sovereign identity pillar. And before to introduce what we are doing, I would like to give you a main idea what is a self-sovereign identity and where it's come from. At the end of the day, self-sovereign identity is just an identity management system. And well, to give you an idea, normally when we have identity management, the end user identify to identity provider, and then with the information, if the identity provider say that, all right, I trust this guy, you can go then use my system. Well, with the time, this kind of systems need to improve or make it bigger, and same identity provider can provide services to different service providers. That is what is called a single sign-on. But even with that wasn't enough, and the system were evolution to provide a different identity providers that can provide service to provide an identity to different services. However, with the population of using of blockchain technology, we have a new paradigm that we can apply to this normal stage of the how to identify an end user. The idea here will be then that if we introduce on the equation a layer where we can rely on, then the identity provider is not needed anymore. We are going to change the paradigm from a centralized system to a decentralized system. And therefore, the end user will be put on the center of the screen of the board and will be the one who obtains the information and where we are going to rely to obtain the information. In order to do so, when the end user tries to connect to a service provider, it's going to use the layer that we have underlined in order to guarantee that he's who claims to be. However, we can say, all right, but how the end user is not faking his information? Well, the idea will be that obtain the information from an authority that then is going to allow us to give the verified credential that we need to trust on that this user is who claims to be. Once we have done this, and I would like to highlight here that the end user will be in the center of the board, as I said before. So it will be the main actor, and we pass from a centralized system where this identity provider contains the information about the identity of the end user. Now is the end user who has the information on his mobile device or in any other system, right? Well, once I say so, let me say, for instance, one specific case where we have used this paradigm in KRAKEN. For instance, we are using for obtaining a diploma. In this case, a student can go to university to obtain his diploma. And once he obtained an issued credential or a verified credential issued by the university, he can present a proof to other parties to say, okay, I have this degree and I cannot withdraw it. And then we can use all the services based on the verified credential that I have present before. That will be one specific case that we are using. Right, but how we have tackled this problem from the development point of view? We have been focused, first of all, on producing a component that the end user can use, in this case, using a mobile application, using a wallet that the end user can obtain his information within his mobile and then provide it to the verifiers. But also we have developed some mechanisms to other service providers like university or other marketplace or any other service provider to easy them to adopt this kind of a self-sovereign identity solution. In this case, we have produced a component we call Ledger User Broker. Right. Here we can see more details. This is more, let's say, low-level detail diagram where you can see all the different components that we are going to use for applying this kind of solution. And well, here I can highlight you what I said before, the mobile application, but also the Ledger User Broker. And other thing that I would like to highlight is that in our particular case, we are going to go one step further than other possible solution, and it's that we are going to use here a backup solution in case that the end user can lose his mobile or want to use multiple devices for this kind of self identity solution. So the idea will be that the end user can have his verified credentials or his identity information in different devices. Right. With this, I would like to give you a short demo of what we are doing. For instance, in this particular case, the end user is going to try to connect to the marketplace, reading in this particular case a QR code to do the connection. We establishing a connection with the marketplace. And once we have this connection established, then the end user is going to be allowed to fill in a form for the registration. Here we can provide our data that we are going to include on the marketplace with the information required. And once we have done that, as you can see on the demo, the marketplace is sending an offer for issuing a credential. That means that the marketplace is telling to the end user, please, do you agree that we will send you this credential? And the end user is going to then receive that credential, store it in the mobile using the name that he desires for it. And once the end user has the credential, you can see here the content of the data that we have used. Right, now we have this information within the mobile. The end user can connect to the marketplace at any time, and using this credential can log in, as you can see here, to the system. And with this, I finish. That's it from my side.
Okay, thank you very much, Angel. If you can stop sharing, I'm going to share my screen again. And now we solve our problems on the technical side. So I think that we have Davide with us. So I will give the floor to Davide Zaccanini, our expert on the marketplace.
Thank you, Javier. Should I ask you to advance the slides, or should I share my screen?
If you want to share your screen, maybe it's better. So I can stop sharing my screen.
Do that. Here we go.
Okay, you can put in presentation mode and let's go.
All right. Well, thank you very much for attending this session. I'm Davide Zaccanini. I'm the managing director at Linkeos. We work on privacy-preserving technologies in healthcare and other domains. And we are responsible for leading the implementation of the marketplace in the KRAKEN project. And what Angel just presented is a good segue into this aspect of our platform. As users are authenticated and identified the way Angel just explained, they gain access to, indeed, the marketplace. In essence, we're developing a system for people to not only share, but also monetize their personal data in a way that protects fully their privacy, and at the same time gives them the incentives to really participate in the data ecosystem. And we are deploying this solution in two main areas, healthcare and education. So people who want to share their personal health data from mobile apps and wearables, but also in future implementations, their electronic medical records, and also their academic records, so their diplomas, grades, and their academic history. So the motivation for doing all this is that, as we know, just by reading the newspapers, the data ecosystem is actually broken. Meaning, whether institutions or actual data subjects are engaging with people who want to use their data, we face the situation of systems that can control patient or students' data, but at the same time, they're not the owners of these data. And they may have some consent to use the data, but there is a lot of gray area when it comes to deciding exactly what the patients or the students really stated in their consent. Those who actually own the data have no physical way of controlling them because they're just not part of the IT ecosystem. The information technology ecosystem basically doesn't give them any real way of engaging with their own data and those who want to use them. At the same time, IT companies do control data flows, and they are those in the best position to really regulate the data access, but they are not really the legal owners of the data, nor they are those who receive consent to use the data, which are instead the hospitals and the universities for these two specific data we're dealing with. So it's a fragmented system where there is really no clear value chain that could be followed when at the end of it, somebody would like to buy or access the data. So what we're doing is in KRAKEN is really bringing coherence to the value chain and de-risking data monetization activities. Now, speaking about data monetization, this is in many environments still a bit of a dirty word. The current situation is such that if you think about really assigning financial value to data, you are probably stepping into a minefield of privacy and security and ethical liabilities. And rightfully so, because indeed, if you're not able to protect the privacy of the data subjects, then data monetization becomes really a contentious type of proposition. What we are doing in KRAKEN is to make that proposition actually consistent with both legal and ethical principles. And we're doing that by not only aligning the interests of all the subjects in the value chain, so hospital and universities, patients and students, and the IT companies that manage their data, and finally the data users, but also making sure that as we protect privacy at every step of the value chain, the friction between monetizing data and protecting the personal information of the data subject is actually resolved. We are able, with our technologies, to really decouple the two sides of this value chain, the private information and the financial gains that subjects can obtain if they are willing to share that information. So we are able to offer incentives and to mitigate the risks for all the stakeholders in ways that today's technology really make scalable and reliable. And we do that by bringing to the table a set of important infrastructures that in some cases are fully user-facing, such as our mobile apps, where users can set their permissions and really state who should access their data, for what purposes, for how long, and who should not. And this is a choice that we put entirely in the hands of data subjects, whether they're students or patients. With our mobile apps, they are in full control of who sees what in their personal information. And they can revoke these permissions at any time. This is a first important step. Without this, any kind of data monetization is really not legal or ethical, and therefore not viable as a value proposition. But this is not enough. Patient permissions in many jurisdictions are not enough to then exercise some kind of financial transaction on the underlying data, even if the patient is okay or willing to share his personal information. To do that, at least in many jurisdictions in Italy, in Europe, definitely Italy and other countries explicitly forbid the selling of personal information, even in presence of explicit consent. So in order to do that, what you need to do is to actually protect the information. And this is where secure multi-party computation comes to the forefront. Secure multi-party computation is a way of really stopping any personal information from leaking or being disclosed to whoever is using the data. And the way that secure multi-party computation does it is by encrypting and breaking down queries that are then ran onto a federated data system. And the result of these queries are only the aggregated results of the actual computation. Nothing regarding the underlying records is ever disclosed, so that on one side, whoever is accessing the data can perform complex computations, including the development of AI agents on the underlying data, but without ever revealing who the subjects are, what their characteristics are, or anything even indirectly related to their identities. All this is orchestrated by the blockchain, where the permissions that are set by the patients on our desktop and mobile apps are captured and computed, so that if the right type of user is asking access to the data, the blockchain can enforce access or deny it based on the specific policies and preferences that the user has expressed. Now, all this comes together in the marketplace. So the underlying technologies that I just explained allow users to go on a data catalog and look at what data are being made available by the users, in what form, for how long, and at what price. As the users log in the marketplace, the blockchain registers the type of request that they're making and matches those requests with the permissions that have been set by the patients or the students using the patient consent app. At that point, if the request is granted and access is given, the computation triggers using the secure multi-party computation, which queries over the encrypted infrastructure, the databases of the hospitals or the universities. And the results are returned to the user, who only sees the aggregated statistics. With this infrastructure, we are able to offer to the users what is really an e-commerce environment where data are presented, described by the sellers, and priced, so that they can finally access the information in a private and secure way predictably, hopefully in the future, hundreds of different data sets, both in healthcare and educational environments. And with this, I finish my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Davide. You can stop sharing. I can share my screen again. Thank you. And we can continue with, because we swap these presentations, sorry for that. We can continue with Silvia. I'm going to give her the floor to present the evaluation results that we have during the first pilot round. Please, Silvia.
Yeah, thank you, Javier. I'm Silvia Gabrielli. I'm a senior researcher at Fondazione Bruno Kessler in Italy, and I'm an expert in human factors, human-computer interaction, and I'm currently working on the design of digital health solutions. Our role in KRAKEN is that of leading the evaluation activities related to the main pillars that have been presented by the previous speakers. And so you can go to the next slide. And so, yeah, I would like just to provide you some information, some key results from this first evaluation round that we conducted quite recently. It was in the last 2 months. And we are almost at the end of the second year of the project. So it was a good moment now for evaluating the first prototype release of the KRAKEN platform, where that includes, of course, the different components that have been presented by my colleagues. So in this presentation, I would like just to say some words about the main results we got. The main aims of our evaluation was, of course, to assess the level of usability of the prototype that we offered to the first users, early adopters of our platform, but also the aim were to investigate a little bit more other dimensions of the possible adoption of this solution by users. So we were interested, for example, to understand more about the user expectation for such a platform, an e-commerce platform that could be used to share personal data. We wanted to investigate a little bit more the preferences of users, of different kind of users. We, of course, selected the key representatives of the target user groups that are most interesting for us in offering this solution, but also investigating some possible concerns that people might have in using such a platform, and of course the first prototype. So here I just listed some main steps of this of the preparation of this evaluation that we conducted. We decided to recruit some participants, and as Davide was saying, we are interested to test this solution in two main domains. One is the healthcare domain, and the other is for sharing educational data. And so we recruited about 12 users for the first pilot, for the health pilot, and 3 users that were students for the educational pilot. We collected the signed consent forms, and we asked these users to watch some short videos that were providing some introductions to the main components of the system. And then we provided instructions to access the platform, and we provided them a list of relevant tasks to be performed for each of these 2 pilot domains. To give you an example, for example, try to connect to the KRAKEN platform and try to register to the marketplace, to try to create a data product and to publish it, to set your privacy preferences, for example, and also try to access it to consume data, so to browse for interesting data that you would like to use. So these kind of tasks that users performed, and after interacting individually with this platform, they were asked to fill in an online form of the SUS questionnaire. It is the System Usability Scale questionnaire that is quite practical as a tool for understanding the level of usability that we could achieve with this first prototype, and to see if there were some main issues that should be fixed or should be improved. And then our users were involved in some workshops, so we conducted some collective interviews with them to understand more their preferences, concerns, and so on. In this slide, you see summarized some main characteristics of our participants. So for the health pilot, we involved 12 persons, 6 men, 6 women. They were quite balanced also in terms of age group involved. The majority was in the age group from 35 to 54, but we also had 2 users that were a little bit younger and 2 that were a little bit older, of course. Then you see the kind of expertise and occupation that they had. So 3 were researchers, 2 were big data for health experts, 2 were legal experts that are also important for assessing all the ethics and privacy issues in using such a platform. 1 was a blockchain expert. 2 were managers of companies that are providing digital health solutions. And 5 were project managers of public health solutions. So, as I was saying before, they were representatives of key target user groups for this platform. For the education pilot, we involved 3 students, 2 women and 1 man. Of course, they were in quite around the age of 25, from 18 to 34, and they were enrolled at the Technical University of Graz, and they had some computer science background. In this slide, you see summarized the results of the usability evaluation. So what came out from the SUS questionnaire, and you can see that for both pilots, we reached an average SUS score on the scale from 0 to 100. That was from 51.87 until 55. So this is considered a a good, a fair result. It is okay, let's say, for a first prototype. We, of course, we had released very quite recently this solution, and so there was a marginal acceptance of this solution, but we also found some possible areas of improvements, especially in the process of downloading, installing the mobile SSI app, and so on. So we are working, of course, on these kind of improvements. And here I would like to tell you something about the results of the workshops where we interviewed users regarding expectations, preferences, and concerns. So, for example, regarding the health pilot, our users were asked some questions on what they thought about the KRAKEN platform, if they thought they had developed some trust by using it and some interest in using this platform for sharing data products. So you see that 58% expressed trust and interest in using the platform, and they were both interested in providing or consuming data products by means of this solution. 42 had some concerns still regarding the privacy, the security, and the quality, especially of the data sharing. So for our users, data quality was very important. They really asked for KRAKEN to have to present and to guarantee that the personal data that are shared are reliable and accurate. And they think also that it's important that the platform ensures that usage of the data is compliant with the privacy settings and goals that are stated by the data provider. Okay, next slide. Then we had some questions that were investigating more if users were interested in using the privacy preserving analytics that can be offered by the platform, and if it was okay for them to use such a secure authentication method through the mobile app, the SSI app. And we found that 92% of the users were interested in using the privacy preserving analytics. They thought that this could be a very interesting service, providing added value to our platform. And some of them also expressed the preference for having very customizable analytics based on the latest crypto techniques. So this is very important for our colleagues that are working in this direction. And then 66% said that they agree to use the SSI mobile app to authenticate, because this is quite commonplace nowadays, or similar methods like speed, for example, that can be used. Then some other questions were investigating the types of data that they would like to share, and also the entities with which they would like to share data. So most users would like to share anonymized data products, and preferably for research purposes. Of course, we had many researchers in our sample, so they were interested in this sense. And also the main factors that are affecting their willingness to share data are the purpose of the data usage, also ethics reasons. For example, they would like to share data for improving and to find new healthcare treatments that are important. They stress the importance of having a control of the data sharing, so the possibility of sharing this data, but also to revoke access to the data. So these features are very important for our system. And some others also mentioned the possibility of receiving credits or some forms of acknowledgement for the data sharing. So these were the main factors leading their decisions to share data. Then we had some questions regarding the compensation for users for sharing data products. And here you see a more balanced situation. 41% would be interested to receive monetary forms of compensation, but 41% would prefer non-monetary forms of compensation. For example, they mentioned access to possible health services. And but what is very important is 92% would find difficult to define a price for a data product that can be shared. So this is an important issue to consider. And in particular, all participants replied to us that they would appreciate to have a sort of support from the platform to define, or at least to check if the prices that they have set are okay, are fine. And also, we had some questions regarding their possible concerns with data protection and privacy that is ensured by KRAKEN. And here we had 83% that had not such clear how KRAKEN can ensure protection and privacy of data shared. For example, there were some of the people involved that had not much experience with blockchain technology, and so they asked for having more detailed information in this sense. And 66 thought that KRAKEN should try to minimize risk as much as possible. Of course, there is no platform that can be can guarantee no risk, but in some cases, they think that the important task is to minimize the risk as much as possible. And also 50% would prefer to have more information, for example, on the measures adopted by KRAKEN for ensuring privacy by design, and also to provide contextual support when the user is at the point of making key decisions in creating and sharing a data product. So in that case, they would need to be a little bit more supported by the platform to make the right choice and not to make any possible mistake. And for the education pilot, here we had, as I remind you, the 3 students that replied to our questions. And regarding trust and interest in KRAKEN, 2/3 would trust the platform, and they were interested in using such a platform for sharing education data. They also asked to have a very easy to use platform and functionalities, and so it's important for them to provide a very good level of user experience. And they thought that it was particularly needed, for example, when they are applying for a job, and this would allow them not to avoid sending printed documents. That is not an operation they really liked. So they thought it was very important. And regarding the privacy preserving analytics and the secure authentication method, for the first one, it was not so clear for them what this kind of feature functionalities, how much it could be useful for them. So they would like to read more and to understand more about this possible added value service. And they agreed to use the SSI mobile app to authenticate. They thought that once solved any usability problem, this could be very easy to use and quite straightforward for them to use. Then regarding the types of data to share and the entities to share data with, they were happy to share, for example, educational data like their CVs, the diplomas, also other types of data that are used in communication with government agencies and so on. They would be happy to share this information, especially with public institutions like university, but also with employers, with state agencies and the government. They were a little bit reluctant to share with private companies, especially if they know that the private companies are using this data for commercial purposes, so not for making money, let's say. Also, for what concerns the questions about compensation, all these participants would prefer non-monetary forms of compensation. For example, they mentioned free access to educational software licenses. And regarding the acceptance and concerns with data protection and privacy, all the participants said that they would not like to share with private companies that are storing data out of Europe. Some of them had concerns on possible change of regulations. So they were asking what happens once the KRAKEN project is over, if there is a discontinuity in managing the platform or the marketplace. So these were issues that came to their mind. And also they showed a sort of preference for a gradual system adoption. They were saying, like, I would start to use the platform, maybe sharing less critical type of data, but then if everything is fine, I would trust this platform and use it also for our more personal data sharing. And here we have the conclusion. Of course, I've been very brief, but our next steps are, of course, these insights that we have collected from our users, even if the sample was not so large, were very important for considering their preferences and to continue to use a user-centered design approach in our project. So we would like to finalize the design of a platform, including additional features, functionalities that we can provide by taking into account this kind of feedback that users provided. And we would like to make also the improvements to the usability that were asked by our testers, initial testers. So in terms of the SUS scale, we would like to achieve at least a level of 68 for in the second round of evaluation, in order to have a very good interaction, very good usability, avoiding any problem with and frustration with using the platform. Then also we are planning to do a second evaluation round next year in 2022, and we would like to involve at least 35 more users for both these pilots, the healthcare and the educational one. So we are interested to maybe enlarge the invitation to more people that have expertise or interest in using our platform and would be interested to take part to this evaluation. And also we are going to deploy the platform with the key stakeholders in these two pilot domains. Here we have reported, and I think Javier will also talk about the contacts details that we have in our project. Of course, we also keep updating our website with more information on KRAKEN, but also these are possible contacts for getting in touch with us and helping us to really improve the platform and the pillars that you have seen presented today in the best possible way also in the next months. So I think, Javier,
Thank you. Thank you very much,
I ran
Silvia.
a bit, but maybe I said...
No, yes, we have limited time. Just to highlight that that's one of our target of this workshop, to engage more users for our second round. So feel free to contact us. Well, we book this slot just for questions. I can read some questions for the audience, trying to summarize them. I don't know if Angel, if you can read one, because I think it's related with the blockchain, because it's unclear for the audience that why we are using the blockchains instead of a regular log, for example, and also in the demo that we saw. That every time a student needs to do something with the evidence, if it's the same case for the health, for the patients of the health pilot, if they have to prompt every time that they need to do something with the data set, if they have to prompt again, one and again, the QRs. So I don't know if you have a chance to read the questions.
Yeah, more or less. Let me first of all clarify. In KRAKEN, we are going to use two different blockchains. One of them is distributed layering technology. One of them is going to be devoted for using a self-storage identity solution, whether the other one is going to be devoted for payments, to help to the end user to pay and buy data from the marketplace. Once I say so, I can talk about the self-storage identity part. I guess, I'm not sure, but I guess that this comment is related with the self-storage identity blockchain or DLT. Well, the main idea here is that self-storage identity is a transversal or horizontal service. In a project like KRAKEN, where we have very different domains with different participants and so on, to have a system like a self-storage identity that allows us to identify the end users to the system in a common way for all type of environments or platforms and so on is great. We can use this self-storage identity approach for using, I don't know, in the hospital or using the marketplace or within the university. And all the thing that I would like to highlight from them and this point of view, this new approach, is that completely user-centric. One of the main things is that the end user is going to have the control of his identity, and he is going to take care and have the final decision about what and how to share that information. Only with that, we can justify the use of this kind of technology, in my opinion. And regarding about the use of QR code and so on, well, the idea is that you don't need to use this QR code for every time you buy or sell a data. The only thing is when you are trying to get into a system and you get into identify with a system, you need to read this QR code. I'm not sure exactly if that is the question of about it, but yes, the idea will be that we need to read the code in order to make available the communication between the website and the mobile that you have, and where it's relying the identification process, right? I'm not sure if I answer all the questions.
Yes, that's the problem of the asynchronous conversation. Meanwhile, we have another question for Silvia. Okay.
I read the question. So there is a question about how we evaluated usability. So I was showing in the slides that we asked the user individually to use the system for some days to perform some tasks. And then we used a tool, a very common tool, that is the system usability scale, that is made of 10 questions where user reply if they agree or disagree. And then you have some general scores that can be compared to other systems, especially web systems everywhere that are used. And so that we can compare with this level of usability that we have achieved with the level we would like to achieve. And as I was saying, 68 would be a good level of usability. So we are a little bit below that target that we hope to achieve with the next evaluation round. And then there was another question. Maybe I could say something more about the background of our users. So some of them were asking, yes, more to have more information about the privacy by design measures used by our platform, because they were legal experts and they are very they are following projects in which there are issues related to sharing personal data, and so they were very competent on this sector, and they analyzed very carefully this aspect. And of course, the background of the other participants was more variegated. We had some people coming from research, some others had more experience on blockchain, but some others not. And so we had on purpose a diversified set of users in order to see if all of them could achieve a good level of trust in the platform, and if not, what are the main issues that they may have regarding this platform that we can help clarify and present in a more clear way in the next for the next evaluation round, and of course for the final release of a platform and all its components.
Thank you very much, Silvia. They are talking a little bit more, but because we are running out of time, let me go just for a quick survey. So if you can go, the audience, I'm going to try to copy and paste this. If you can, let me, okay. Let me copy this URL. And if you could go to our survey, we are very happy that if you can answer some questions there. So let me go. I'm going to quickly go also. To run, sorry for that. I think that you can see, you cannot see, sorry, the survey, but the survey is running. I have some problems with sharing my screen on that, but let me, if I could go. Let me, okay. I'm going to share my screen and you can see the results. Well, you can see the control panel, but we can see some audience is interested in participating in our next evaluation round. I'm presenting with another computer, so that's why I'm trying to have here the results. So don't be shy and try to answer our questions. Okay, if no more questions, I will pass to the next. And the next one is that if you are interested in participating in the next KRAKEN evaluation, but as an infrastructure provider. So the first thing is we would like to have some users participating in our pilot, but also we need some infrastructure providers for the different aspects of our platform. So not the marketplace, because it's part of the KRAKEN, and KRAKEN is providing the platform. But for example, if someone wants to host any ledger for the blockchain, or could be a data provider, or could be a data consumer, but always from the infrastructure provider, right? Well, at least we have the 4 same users that they are answering the previous question. And thank you very much. And I'm going to go to the third, is just a question running like a quiz. Okay, and it's just to know in which part are you interested. If participate, in case that you are interested in participating, in which role your organization could be interested in participating in KRAKEN. That way we can know which aspect we can pilot more, or we can focus on different aspects during our pilot execution. Well, we have the results in our platform. So thank you very much. I'm going to share again my presentation. We have now some information from you. Thank you very much for participating in our quick survey. Sorry for the technical problems of sharing. And just for wrapping up, so we present the 3 pillars of our projects, our project, and also a very important target that we have today in our workshop is to try to engage more users, and that's why Silvia present the evaluation results that we have in the first round of the pilots. So feel free to contact us on this means. So we have our webpage in this URL, and also we have some LinkedIn and Twitter on the social networks, and also feel free to send directly an email to our KRAKEN mailbox. So thank you very much for attending our session of KRAKEN, and we hope you contact us for any further information. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. That's all from our side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.